Woo! Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Wait a second, it's 2025, am I right? Leroy, Illinois, a city, is now requiring medical information to attend a public meeting. We are going to get to that. Plus, Joe Biden, remember when he accidentally admitted to having cancer in 2022? I do. So we're going to get to that. Plus, Bernie Sanders admitting out loud with his mouth that Democrats are actually the ones who are a threat to democracy. And he says, I'm not going to argue with that. When he's on a podcast, they asked him, okay, so are Democrats a threat to democracy? And he says, I'm not going to argue with that. Then in the 7 o'clock hour, you won't want to miss it, guest Dillian Vancil. He's running in the 17th congressional district. There's so much I got to get to this morning. The Town of Normal meeting was last night. Stayed up late, watched it for you. Bogus. It was a bogus meeting. To sum it up, the Town of Normal meeting councilwoman, Karen Smith, said there's economic benefit to dense housing, infill housing, building up rather than out. She said that the planned unit of development is going to be maintaining the streets, and that's going to be a cost saving to us. Whoa. To us as a community. Karen. There's no way that this is going to be a cost savings to us. When you put people on top of each other in an area, you're inevitably going to have to pay. The taxpayers are going to have to pay for these people to live there. We're talking EMS. We're talking street maintenance. We're talking more traffic. We're talking policing. I mean, come on. You can't tell me that this is going to be a cost savings. That's a bit of a stretch, sweetheart, where you've got the PUD is going to be maintaining their streets. Yeah, I would hope so within the development, right? This is the Essex Housing Project. It's like 200 plus. It's pushed by Young America. Obviously, there were probably approximately 100. I don't know the exact total, but there were a ton of people who spoke at the Normal Town Council meeting over the Planning Commission. That was on May 8th, I believe. Just a couple of weeks ago, it went before the full council. And of course, they approved it, right? So at the council meeting, they were tasked with the fate of this proposed housing project. I knew they were going to rubber stamp it. You knew they were going to rubber stamp it because that's what they do. And the big thing about this was that this was supposed to be zoned for single-family housing. There was actually a contractual agreement. It's called a housing covenant with Collie Ridge, the residents there, but they backed out of that. They breached that contract, essentially. And now they've changed it to multifamily housing. And it's going to be these 3-story apartment buildings. They're going to be putting it there. This was Karen Smith at the meeting last night. I do want to play her comments, and then I'm going to get to Andy Byer's comments, and then I'm going to get to Chris Goose's comments, and then we're going to shift gears and we're going to get to Leroy. Lots of local stuff in the 6 o'clock hour today, but I promise we are going to get to Joe Biden admitting he had cancer in 2022. We're going to get to Bernie Sanders. Plus, you won't want to miss the 7 o'clock hour because I've got the Chicago woke mayor. He is on tape saying that he only hires Black people. And the Trump DOJ is now taking him to court for discrimination. And then I do need to get to this as well. Just a packed show today. So you won't want to miss a second of this. We are going to get to Dan Bongino and Kash Patel saying that Epstein did kill himself. He did commit suicide. And I disagree. I disagree that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. I just do. And they haven't really given me a ton of facts, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, to change my position on that. All right, let's get to Karen Smith from the Normal Town Council meeting. Here she is.
Is a forecast. When those people leave, they're taking their paychecks with them, and they're paying the property taxes on their homes and into another community. But more importantly, they're spending their money in their home communities, most likely. And that sales tax revenue that those workers generate is not being captured by the town of Normal. And sales tax is our largest source of revenue in the general fund. The other thing that he didn't point out was that when they're trying to attract employers to our area, they're interested in knowing what our housing situation is because they want to be sure that there are workers.
Okay, so there she's citing this economic study that was done by the Bloomington Normal Economic Development Council. And she talks about here people who live in neighboring communities, Logan County, you've got Livingston County, who might drive into McLean County to work at Rivian, or Ferrero. I know a few people who live in Logan County and they drive in to work at the Ferrero plant. Now, she is never going to combat American culture. No matter how many projects they propose and approve, the town council, they're not going to force the American people to change something that's fundamental about them, which is we drive into work, we drive back out, and we go to our houses in the burbs. Okay. Normal is a city. Bloomington is a city. People don't really tend to like it. They don't like to live in cities. They don't. They want the house. They want the picket fence, the dog. And you're building all of these houses or housing projects. They're not houses. They're apartments, multifamily housing. You're building all of that and they can't have that. That's why they're going elsewhere. They're going to Logan County, Livingston County, where there are houses, where there is the picket fence, where they can have more than one kid or two kids, where they can have children. That's why they're going. And you're not going to change that about American people because it's fundamental to who we are as a culture. We want the two kids. We want the picket fence. We want a single family home. And it doesn't matter how many of these housing projects you've shoved down our throats. You're not going to change that, Karen. And then she just admitted out loud with her mouth that the whole reason why they want to do this is so that way they can get the commuters to come into the town of Normal so they can gobble up your sales tax. So she just admitted that with her mouth. She doesn't really care about the American culture, the communities, and what our communities look like. She really wants your sales tax money because she's greedy, just like everybody else in the council, okay? And everybody else in government. They're greedy and they want more tax revenue. So that way they can collect these exorbitant salaries like Pam Ray's over almost $300,000 if it's not that already. All right. I'm sorry. I'm getting passionate about this one. Whew. All right. Let's get to, I think Andy Netzer would be a great one to get to. He's the managing broker. And like I said, I don't think anybody there would have opposed this project going to, there's multifamily housing planned for Hovey Avenue. It's right across from my church, actually. Nobody is opposed to that. It's right outside of the town limits, kind of, or right there in the town. It's away from all the single family houses. Nobody would be opposed to single family homes going here either. I don't think anybody would have showed up to the council meeting if we were talking about single family homes. Let's get to Andy Netzer. He's the managing broker, like I said, a Young America president, and he was asked about the target demographic. I really don't know who they're looking for here because apparently, at least according to, some of the residents who spoke at the meeting, they said that the developer said these apartments won't be affordable to students nor the average worker at Rivian. We're talking high-end luxury apartments. So let's get to Andy Netzer here. Here we go.
Affordable housing for people in that kind of, is it attainable for somebody in the middle of the workforce? The way to make more housing attainable for them is to make more housing. And if we increase the supply, that will ease the pressure burden off of all of the housing market. But I wouldn't sit here and tell you the average Rivian worker is our target market.
So he admits that the average Rivian worker. So Karen's saying, hey, all these people are commuting in to work here in McLean County. A lot of those people are commuting in for the jobs at Rivian Ferrero. And he just said that this housing was not for that. So boom. That's sorry, Karen. That's a dumb reason. Number one. Number two, here's Andy Netzer talking about how this is not going to be targeted for your average Rivian worker. And appears to be luxury housing. And he says, okay, if we saturate the housing market with these high-end luxury apartments, that's going to address our housing crisis. No, because there is a demand for single-family homes. Why? Because it's fundamental to who we are as people and as Americans specifically. We want a house with a picket fence. We don't want an apartment to try to shove our kids into. They don't like that. American people have never liked that. That's why the burbs this is the American dream, to go and live in the burbs and drive in 20 minutes to work. You're never going to change that. If you want to address the housing crisis, build more single family homes. We had Kayla DeLong on. She was a real estate agent a couple of weeks ago, and she told me, I think there's like a total of 10 single family homes on the market. And of those, I think there's only about a handful that are lower than the $400,000 mark or $350,000 mark. Like, there is no affordable single family homes in Normal. And if they want to address the housing shortage in Normal, then you'd build more single family homes, right? So there's more. It gets better. Conservative Cat said he's 92.9. We're going to talk about Chris Coos. Chris Coos also made some comments at the meeting, and he was talking specifically about our youth. Although it didn't make a whole lot of sense, because Andy Netzer, at the meeting that I watched, according to the developer, these apartments weren't going to really be for students, and they're not really for the average worker. I don't know who the hell they're for. They're high-end luxury apartments. Who's going to be able to afford that? I don't know. The CEOs of these companies, Rivian, the big elites, the elitists at these companies, I don't know. But that's according to the developer, that these apartments aren't going to be really affordable to the average Rivian worker and your students. So here's Mayor Chris Coos. I want to highlight this. Nearly half of Illinois graduates, over half, I've seen some studies say over half of Illinois high school graduates, they go on to college attending out of state. So, Illinois high school graduates, they will go out of state to schools because they say the taxes are too high. Despite this fact, and about 70% of students who leave Illinois to go to college, they never return, Chris Coos says that students need housing in Normal. They're gone, Chris. Nobody wants to live in Illinois because your governor that you love so much, he's made it impossible to live here and to afford it. So there are no students. There is no demand for student housing. They're gone. Everybody's gone. There's been a mass exodus in Illinois of residents in general, let alone students who say, I'm getting the heck out of here. The Essex Housing Project was pushed by Young America. This is Chris Coos.
Multifamily projects that are very similar to what Young America is trying to do tonight, where we had an exact duplicate of what happened here tonight in terms of the issues of parking, the issues of traffic, the issues of crime, issues of lighting. And those projects flourished. And we've never had complaints on those projects because they were done properly and adequately. And that is what our job is, to hold the developer to those standards to make sure we get the right mix and the right project. I believe this is the right project. One of the other things too that's kind of interesting is one of the mantras of this community is, where are our young people? Where can they live? Where can they afford to live? They leave, and we want them, either they go away to school, we want them to come back.
They
But
won't.
we don't have housing for them. And that's, to me, a significant issue.
We need to have housing for them. They're not coming back to Illinois after they've left. Why? Because other states are more tax friendly and they can actually make a life for themselves. And they actually have single family homes where they can live out the American dream. Got to take a break. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Join me on the stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'll be right back. Sorry, I'm getting a little passionate about this one. It just bothers me so much that we've got really, it's just so stupid. Nearly over half of Illinois high school graduates, they go on. I think it's like 51% at this point, but it varies. The studies, a lot of kids, a lot of high school graduates, they go on to go out of state. And the number one reason is high taxation, okay, and opportunities elsewhere. We're not prioritizing manufacturing jobs. We've prioritized public sector jobs. People don't want those jobs. They want jobs where they can punch in, punch out, and go home to their family. They want work. They want their work and personal life to be separate. That's why they love the commute. Okay, so you drive in, you work your manufacturing job at Rivian, you go home to the wife and kids. This is the American way. This is fundamental to who we are, and there is no changing that. They're trying so hard to change the culture that we're used to here in the town of Normal, and they're not going to succeed, because that ideology, the fundamentals of the American, are much more powerful than any kind of push for this. And one thing that somebody brought up was, okay, what about all the other multifamily housing projects that have yet to be built? Why are we building this one when we haven't built all the other ones? And I think it's just wishful thinking. That the students, they're going to return to Illinois, although all the statistics show that college students, high school graduates who go out of state, nearly half of them go out of state. 70% of those students will never come back. They'll never return to Illinois. And I think it's wishful thinking until we get, of course, the taxation under control, more job opportunities. The corporate income tax is the highest it's in the nation, I think, or at least second highest in the nation. Until we get those things under control, where we're keeping businesses here and manufacturing here in the state, you're never going to see those students return. And I think it's wishful thinking on behalf of Chris Coos to think that those college students, they're gonna return to Illinois at some point, and that they're gonna need housing. Not to mention, there's plenty of housing, there's plenty of projects. As Kayla DeLong had pointed out, hey, what about the multifamily housing that has been approved and proposed? There's one on that's supposed to go in at Linden and Rab. So yeah, there's a lot here. I mean, we're also going to get to Andy Byers. Maybe I'll get to him and wrap this story up, because I've got so much to get to today, and I really got to move on. Because you're busy, and I get it, you're here for just a little while. But we're going to get to Andy Byers here quickly, and then we're going to move on to Bernie Sanders admitting out loud that Democrats are actually a threat to democracy. He was on a podcast and blatantly admitted out loud that he wasn't going to argue with this show host here on this podcast that said that Democrats are actually a threat to democracy, and he admitted that Democrats are the ones who are the threat to democracy out loud. So we're going to get to that. And then, of course, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they say that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Until I see hardcore evidence, I'm not going to trust these institutions. They've given me no reason to trust these institutions. I love Dan Bongino. He was on Cities 92.9 for years, since I actually took the position. He was coming on right as I came on the air. And I love Dan Bongino. He's great, but just because the government, he's government now, just because the government says trust us, that's not enough. I've been burned way too many times. Trust us, trust us. Trust us, trust the science, trust us. How many times have you heard that? And until I see some hardcore evidence that suggests that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, or did kill himself, then I'm not going to adopt that belief. And Dan Bongino should know that until that hardcore evidence presents itself, I mean, they admitted that they have seen the file. Why can't we see it? So there's like this lack of transparency with Kash Patel, Dan Bongino now. I know I hate to say that. And then, of course, Pam Bondi. And Pam Bondi needs to draw up charges. They need to draw up charges against James Comey for the third assassination attempt, or for calls for a third assassination attempt. 8647. He wrote this out, and so gay, by the way. And yes, I said gay. It's gay to write in seashells on the beach. 8647. It's just a dumb way of calling for the assassination of President Donald Trump. And it's totally a pansy way of doing it as well. I'm not saying that he should at all. I'm just saying, like, of course, James Comey would do it in this way. But 8647, it's very clear what that means. It means you want to get rid of, or so 86, we used to use this in the waitress industry a lot. It means we're out of, or it's gone. Okay, so he's calling for the 86 for him to be gone. 47. Now it's ambiguous. People are saying, oh, well, he just wants him to be impeached. He just wants him to get out of there. Or, with this president, I would say, okay, whatever. If there wasn't already 2 assassination attempts on his life, like, James Comey knows better. He should have not posted that, knowing that there's already a volatile situation there with President Donald Trump and assassins, or would-be assassins. Good morning. Hey, I know you're busy, so I'm going to jump right into it. Cities 92.9, we were talking about the town normal meeting. I played some of the comments for you. There's one more clip I want to get to, which is Andy Byers. At the Normal Town Council meeting, Young America managing broker Andy Netzer, he was asked about the target demographic for this housing project. It's the Essex housing project, 200 plus units, smack dab in the middle of a bunch of single family resident homes. And you had Karen Smith saying that there's going to be an economic benefit to density, to this dense housing, to infill housing, and that's where you build up rather than out. And there's really not. I mean, come on, we know, like, I don't care if the PUD says that they're going to maintain the streets. That's the least they can do, right? Maintain the streets in the area. Outside of that, you've got rise of crime, policing, more people on our city sewers and the utilities. I mean, you can't pitch this to me as a cost savings. It's a bit of a stretch, if you ask me, and a little tone deaf. Here's Andy Byers talking about how projects like this one are going to sustain the community or the economy in the long run, which I find interesting. Take a listen. Here we go.
Communities that are shrinking and are not supporting projects like this that are going to sustain the economy in the long run. And in those shrinking communities, you see a loss of industry, a loss of people, and a loss of projects. And I don't want our community to become a shrinking community. I want us to continue to grow. And I think that supporting projects like is being proposed tonight will allow us to sustain our local economic growth. Economies are growing.
Okay. He said that it's not going to be student housing. Andy Netzer, although Chris Coos said we have to make room for our youth, it's still unclear because Young America traditionally student housing, but Andy Netzer says it's not going to be affordable to the average Rivian worker. It's not going to be affordable to students. I don't know what the hell Andy's talking about here, because if, it's not providing a place to live for the average Rivian worker. It's not providing really a place to live for students because it's not going to be affordable to those types of people. What are you talking about sustaining our economy in the long run? I don't know what you're talking about. Plus, not to mention, our community, I believe, is shrinking. The town normal is shrinking. And I think that's pretty evident by the fact we have multifamily housing projects that have been planned that have never gone up. So why is it they're not putting this development in a correctly zoned location, multifamily housing, zoned already multifamily housing? They're putting it smack dab in the middle of a single family residence. I don't think anybody at that council meeting would have been there had it been single family housing that was going in there. But then also, why do we need this development? If there's such a need for this type of housing, Why haven't they built this type of housing? There's plenty of projects that have been approved by the council. Look at Linden and Rab. There was supposed to be a development that went up there and it hasn't done it. Nobody's broken ground. I mean, come on. It's needed to sustain our economy, though. What? Come on. All right. We got to take a quick break. I promised I was going to move on. We're going to get to Leroy. They're requiring medical information to attend a public meeting. Then Joe Biden accidentally admitting he had cancer in 2022. You remember that? We're going to get to all of it here next on Conservative Cat. Good morning, Lisa. So proud. I'm so excited to see you here and proud of our listeners because they are dedicated and loyal and they know the news before anybody else. And if you are watching today, I'd love for you to subscribe and to share this out. Had to get to some of the normal drama. This is something that is very clearly opposed by the residents in that area. And the fact that you've got council not representing the opposition here when it's very, very much, I think Patrick Hoban and Noah Tang, they came out in support of the project, obviously. But outside of that, there was so much opposition. And me as a council member, I'm just going to be honest with you, if I was a council member, I would outweigh it this. How many constituents am I hearing from about this issue and what is their position on it? I'm going to vote the way that they want me to vote on this because I am a representative and I am not one who questions the will of the people or pushes back against the will of the people. It's very clear. And if there was massive support for this project, there wasn't, I would vote with the people who wanted to support this project because I am a representative. But if there are herds of people, quite literally herds of people, 85 within an hour, this woman, she actually, Beth Rooker, she collected over 80 signatures and it was a petition and the residents of Collie Ridge were on this petition and they got this notarized and she said, hey, this is a breach of contract. Our original housing covenant has to be restored. And this document was notarized. It was filed with the recorder's office. To me, it sounds like they're gearing up for a lawsuit, the residents there, which I definitely think they've got one. I don't know how this covenant was able to be skirted, but it feels like a breach of contract, obviously, to these residents. And they want that contract to be restored where, hey, this was a housing covenant that promised that this land was going to be developed for single family houses if it was going to be developed at all. And now you're saying that it's going to be this big, dense multifamily housing project, which, sure, okay, let's just, for argument's sake, say you want it, you need it. Andy Byers thinks that we need it, although it's not going to be used for our average Rivian worker. It's not going to be used for students because it's not affordable according to the developer. To those types of people, they use our high-end luxury apartments, and he makes this argument that if you flood the market with these types of houses, that you're going to kind of ease the burden on the housing crisis, which is just dumb because really the housing crisis in normal is that there's no single family homes being built that don't have that aren't mega or mini mansions. They're granite countertops. They're these mini mansions essentially, and nobody could really live in those. That's why they're going elsewhere. That's why they're, as Karen Smith had said, commuting in. So we are going to have Dylan come on at about 7:30, I believe. Sorry, I got squirreled. Distraction. So, yeah, the 80 signatures, this proves that there's overwhelming opposition to this project. And ultimately, your role as an elected representative is to side with the loudest voice, or I don't want to say the loudest voice, but clearly the majority here. These people say that they're all for democracy. You're really not. You're siding with the developer. This is one guy. There were two other people who showed up, but they have everything to gain from this. Okay. in support of this project. Patrick Hoban, arguably at the Bloomington Economic Development Council, is the reason they're basing it off of this study that his team had done, saying that there's this housing crisis. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that if there was this housing crisis, there wouldn't be all these vacancies. I've talked to people who have these high-end luxury apartments, Ironwood Gardens. I'm sure they have vacancies for students. I went there, I actually stayed after Illinois State University for, I don't know, a period of 4 years, something like that, after graduating. And I stayed in the community, and there was multifamily housing for me that wasn't smack dab in the middle of a residential area, by the way. That type of housing project, I don't know when Ironwood was built, but it's perfect. It's right outside. It's like right in the middle of a cornfield, away from the actual Ironwood. I think there's an Ironwood subdivision there. There's Pheasant Run. There's a few other, I think... I'm trying to think of all the subdivisions there, but it's off to the side. There's a multifamily housing project. I think that's even planned for Hovey Avenue. If they haven't broken ground yet, they should. There's multiple projects that have been approved by council that haven't really gone up at all. So how do we know that there's still a housing crisis if we haven't developed these? So there's also a big problem here that they're not building anything. So they're approving these projects, but they're not building anything. So are the developers getting shut down? Probably, because of the statistics, nearly half of Illinois high school graduates travel out of state to go to college. And then of those, 70% of them never come back to Illinois. So, I mean, they're probably looking at that. They're looking at the mass exodus. They're looking at the high taxation. And they're like, look, you can't charge enough to fill the apartments, because the property taxes are exorbitant here in the state of Illinois. We're not going to give you the money to build this development because you're not going to be able to fill it. Nobody wants to live in Illinois. Hey, weak Republicans will do nothing about Comey. Where are the arrests that we were promised? Yes, you can always leave a comment on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, and you can text me 309-451-9299. That was a comment. Yeah, we're going to get to that. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino now saying that Jeffrey Epstein's suicide was actually a suicide. And I'm sorry, I'm not seeing a whole lot of evidence that it was actually a suicide. And Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, loved Dan Bongino, was on Cities 92.9 for years. He should know that our audience and his audience, he should know that we're a skeptical bunch. Right? We're skeptical. And until we see evidence to suggest that Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself via suicide, until I see evidence, I'm not going to believe it. You trained me, Dan. You trained me. You said, don't believe the government when they say trust us. Have them show you the evidence. They have the file. He admits it. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they admit that they have the Jeffrey Epstein file. Let's see it. Where are all my arrests? I want James Comey arrested. He actually called for the assassination of President Donald Trump. And that is not an exaggeration. 8647. I was in the service industry. I was a waitress. 86 has a very specific meaning. It means gone, eliminated, out of. 8647. That's calls for an assassination attempt. And James Comey knows better and really should be arrested. Pam Bondi needs to do her job. Let's get into this. We've got a health emergency, right? You guys remember the health emergency, the 2020 pandemic that brought on masking and other things. Well, that's long gone. So I thought, except for Leroy, Illinois, in this city. Leroy is a small city with a population of around 3,500 people. It's located in McLean County. On their meeting agenda, according to the Edgar County Watchdogs, they published the agenda, the primary documentation, and on their agenda, this is the statement. Masks required if symptomatic or unvaccinated. Nice. It was questionable during the health emergency, but now in 2025, now that there's no longer an emergency requiring masks if you're unvaccinated, it's an unwarranted invasion into somebody's personal medical history, and in my opinion, violates the language and intent of the Open Meetings Act. You can't force people into disclosing their medical information. You can't force people to wear a face diaper, especially not in 2025. Give me a break. The city of Leroy cannot mandate masks. The agenda for the meeting held on May 5th, by the way, has never been posted, according to BLN News. Last night's minutes for that meeting on May 5th, they were approved, I'm assuming. So allegedly that violates the Open Meetings Act. You have to post it on your website if you've got one. It's according to the Open Meetings Act, and they were approved the minutes. I mean, are you in violation of the Open Meetings Act? I do want to get to this story. Let's shift gears. So Leroy, on their agenda, their city council meeting. And one thing that we've got to point out, water rates going up. It looks like that's the controversy here with this May 5th meeting, and probably why it wasn't posted. That's the speculation at this point as to why the meetings weren't posted on their online, on their website for the public to see. It's because there's something very controversial on it, raising water rates. That's what I'm thinking. I want to shift gears. Let's get to Joe Biden. Joe Biden, 2022, admitted he had cancer. Okay, so Sunday night, 2 days before the release of a book exposing the mass cover-up of Joe Biden's cognitive decline, while president, it was announced that Joe Biden had an aggressive form of prostate cancer. So there's supposed to be this release of a book that, hey, this is a cover-up. They were covering up Joe Biden's cognitive decline. I knew Joe Biden was, well, when he started running in 2020, we all knew it. They knew that we knew it. We knew that they knew it, but they didn't report on it, the mainstream media. And if you find yourself questioning the timing, consider this video in 2022, and we'll get to it. Joe Biden said out loud in 2022, "I have cancer." At that time, we chalked it up to cognitive decline. I remember I thought it was weird because he had said I had cancer, and then the White House came out and said, well, he did have like a form of skin cancer, and that's what he was referring to. They chalked it up. So in 2022, I was on the air. I chalked it up to cognitive decline and just complete mental incompetence. And I said, oh, they're covering it up and they're trying to say that he had skin cancer and yada, yada, yada. Before we get into it, multiple things can be true, by the way. I want to be clear on that. You can be a garbage person and still have cancer. I want to make that clear. Joe Biden is a garbage person. Not a very nice guy. You can still have cancer, and I'm still going to pray that you get better. Although you're my enemy, Joe, I'm still going to pray that you get better. And you are a jackwagon if you celebrate or say, hooray, Joe Biden has cancer. Nobody is saying that. I'm not celebrating anybody dying. Of course not. Separate from that is this conversation we have to have about Joe Biden falling apart before our eyes since 2020, really. It was a cover-up. The left, the media, I repeat myself, they covered it up. He was falling apart before our very eyes. Not only did this Biden announcement come before the book release, so keep in mind there's a book release about the cover-up of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. But this is also after the audio was released, the timing of this announcement that I have very aggressive prostate cancer. It comes after the audio release. This was testimony conducted by special counsel Robert Turr, the one where he called Joe Biden an elderly man with poor memory, and that's why they didn't charge him with the classified documents thing. And Robert Turr was attacked by the media. I'm old enough to remember this stuff. I was on the air. He was attacked by the media, this guy, for saying that Joe Biden was an elderly man and he was incapable of understanding his crimes or remembering his crimes, his alleged crimes, about covering or not storing classified documents correctly. It turns out that Joe Biden, while president, is an elderly man with poor he was an elderly man with poor memory, and he is an elderly man with poor memory. And one thing, I think it's Lupron or something like that they use to treat cancer, prostate cancer specifically. It's supposed to lower your testosterone levels, and with that, Lupron, I think it's what it's called. I'm not a doctor, so don't yell at me and don't take this as medical advice, but I'm pretty sure that's what they use to treat prostate cancer. And there's all kinds of side effects to that drug. They actually give it to transgender athletes men who want to be women in sports. They give it to them as well. But the side effects are memory loss, diarrhea. There's so much with this drug. And if he was taking this drug, the American people deserved to know. Now, this is an audio clip, and I'm going to get to it here. Robert Turr, this audio was released. Okay, so keep in mind the timing of this announcement that I have prostate cancer and it's very aggressive. Keep in mind the timing. This is after the audio release. This is before the book release, detailing out Joe Biden's cognitive decline and the cover-up. So take a listen. Here we go.
Chambers Road, and there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden or the cancer failure shot or your book. Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate.
So he's having a very difficult time. He was thinking, I had a very difficult time. I was in the Senate. Bo died. He was deployed. He's getting his dates all mixed up. He's not well. Here, with Robert Turr, this was audio that was released with Robert Turr. Remember when the media and the Democrats went after Robert Turr for saying that he was an elderly man and he was incapable of defending himself against these alleged crimes. Can you blame us for thinking that there's a cover-up? Who controlled Joe Biden? Who knew he had cancer? And it's come out now that there's no way that this cancer is a new revelation. It's not like this is a sudden revelation where Joe Biden has an aggressive form of prostate cancer. That's not something that was suddenly discovered. I sure hope Jill, being the doctor that she is, got him the proper treatment during his presidency. I don't know if they withheld treatment to try to preserve him as the president. The American people had a right to know that our president was unwell. And as somebody who gets regular medical checkups, by the way, he's the president of the United States, commander-in-chief. He gets the leader of the free world. He gets regular checkups. This wasn't just discovered. In fact, according to a urologist, this is highly, highly unlikely that they just found this out. It's very unlikely that someone could get annual checkups, which we know he got as the White House president, as the president of the United States, and not notice a PSA elevation over the past, but this is what I typically would see at a VA hospital where a patient hasn't had medical attention for 10 years. Now, this is not Joe Biden's case where, and I'm talking about this doctor, and I'm going to play this clip of this doctor who says, it's a urologist who says, yeah, this is highly unlikely for somebody who definitely gets annual checkups to not notice PSA elevation. And he said, I see this in a VA hospital sometimes if these people don't get medical attention for 10 plus years, and then they get to the emergency room with bone pain, and then they find out that they have this aggressive form of prostate cancer and that's reached inside their bones. Very unusual for somebody who we know gets annual checkups. So we're going to play this clip of the doctor because it's very important that you know that this isn't just some revelation, and there needs to be answers. The American people need to know who was running the country. It's becoming increasingly clear that he was not the person we had elected in 2020 to be president. We were under this fake lie that Joe Biden was well, and they kept telling us he was well, and he wasn't. There needs to be hearings. There needs to be a commission. Does Joe Biden need to be dragged out in front of Congress? No, but I think Jill Biden does. I think Kamala Harris does. I think Ron Klain does. I think Jake Sullivan does. I think Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, anybody who had and was working in the West Wing needs to be dragged out in front of a committee under oath, and they need to answer questions about the cover-up. You can't blame me for saying there was a cover-up. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Gab. Good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. We are going to get to Joe Biden having cancer. There's this clip I want to get to of this doctor who says that this is not a new revelation. It's very unusual to hear that someone has prostate cancer where they're annually being followed up, like he had annual checkups, and he's to find it at Gleason 9 is pretty much unheard of in this day and age in medicine. Because if you're getting these annual checkups, you should have caught this cancer diagnosis. This is not a new revelation. This is an aggressive form of cancer. He's had it. He had regular checkups. So this is a doctor, Dr. David Schusterman, and he discusses Joe Biden's prostate cancer diagnosis. We're going to get to that clip. You can't blame me. He had cancer. It's very possible, and this clip as well in 2022 reveals that he had cancer possibly 3 years ago when he admitted it in 2022. Biden actually said, I have cancer. And at the time, they said, oh, it's skin cancer. That's what he's talking about. And we kind of chalked it up to cognitive decline. It was odd then, though. I remember being on the air and playing this exact clip. And I was like, okay, why did he say he had cancer? But the media knew, the Democrats knew, and they can't blame you for thinking that there was a cover-up. The people who controlled by Joe Biden knew that he had cancer, and then they waged lawfare against President Donald Trump. Remember the 34 counts of bookkeeping errors, the 34 felonies, right? Biden would resign. This is probably what they had in mind. Biden would resign of sudden cancer revelation because the American people would never elect Kamala Harris. I don't know why it didn't turn out that way, where we had Joe Biden resign abruptly and then have Kamala Harris installed. I thought maybe that was their plan. I don't know who was running the presidency, but you deserve to know. I deserve to know as the American people who voted Joe Biden in. And they waged this lawfare against President Donald Trump simultaneously. It's just bizarre. And we need answers. So we're going to get to that, plus Bernie Sanders, the democracy, threat to democracy thing, where he admits that actually Democrats are a threat to democracy. Explains a lot, and people need to pay. Yeah. Apparently, the deep state got to Bongino, just doing what he's told to do. Look, and maybe Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself, but what really bothers me about the whole Cash Patelti and Bongino thing, where they came out and they said that Jeffrey Epstein did in fact kill himself, and he goes, I've seen the file. Dan Bongino coached me, coached you, coached many listeners that, hey, do not believe the government when they say trust us. Because that's essentially what they did. They didn't provide any evidence to suggest otherwise. They didn't show us the file that apparently he's seen. Why can't we see it? And I don't trust government who withholds information from the American public. I mean, we see what happens here with Joe Biden's cognitive decline and his cancer. I mean, they didn't provide us any evidence that Joe Biden was doing well during his term as president. So everybody who said, "Oh, he's experiencing cognitive decline," and they called you a conspiracy theorist for saying that. Turns out your conspiracy theory was right. He had prostate cancer, probably has had it for a while, according to doctors. People smarter than me said that he's probably had it for a very long time. Probably since 2022, when he admitted he had cancer on tape. That's probably when he had it. Probably had it even before then. So be critical of government. I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's Dan Bongino. I don't care if it's Kash Patel. Be critical of government when they come out and say, believe us, and then they don't provide evidence. Believe us, Joe Biden's well. He's sharp as a tack, that one. Believe us. Be very critical of government who just says, believe us, trust us, trust us. No. Give me the evidence and then I'll trust you. Wowza. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cats. He's 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I promise we are going to get to Bernie Sanders. He actually came out loud with his mouth and admitted that Democrats are a threat to democracy. Yeah. This is because psychological projection is very common amongst the most progressive politicians. They know that they're saying threat to democracy, threat to democracy. Bernie Sanders says that all the time. Donald Trump's a threat to democracy. It's because his party is the threat to democracy. It's called psychological projection. We're going to get to Bernie Sanders admitting that out loud with his mouth. But I promised you I was going to play this urologist who said, look, there is no way. I mean, it's very unlikely and it's unusual that we hear that somebody has this aggressive prostate cancer. Again, praying for Joe Biden. You're a scumbag human being if you are celebrating Joe Biden having cancer. I'm just glad that he's getting the help he needs. And I pray that he has gotten the help he needs and medical treatment wasn't withheld from him during his presidency in order to preserve him. Because some of these treatments can, and I don't know if he was on Lepron or Lepron, I don't know what it's called. It's a medication where they lower your testosterone levels in order to stop the cancer from progressing and prostate cancer. But the major side effect of that is long-term memory loss. Long-term, and a lot of times, even when you get off the medication, your memory never comes back and it worsens. It continues to worsen even when you're off the meds. So I hope that he was getting the proper medical attention, even if they were being untruthful about his condition. We're going to hear from this urologist. He says that it's very unusual that somebody who gets obviously annual checkups, being the president of the United States, that they're just finding this out now. So we're going to get to that plus 2022 clip of Joe Biden where he was quoted, quote, "This is why I and so many damn people, other people have cancer." He admitted he had cancer in 2022. So for how long has he had cancer? Also raises a key question. He was in Delaware for 3-4 days at a time, no visitor logs. Was he undergoing treatment? There needs to be answers to these questions. I got to take a quick break here. Listening to Conservative Cat. I can't help but also wonder that about Dan Bongino, if the deep state has gotten to him. I don't know if I'm going to go that far. I think that they are kind of sheep being thrown into a wolf's den. Okay, this is an institution that has been corrupt for a very long time. I don't know if their families have been threatened or anything like that, but to be a dissenter, it's hard to be. And I, being in a college institution, I've actually got my Redbird shirt on today. I went to Illinois State University, and dissenting from the status quo on college campus, which was, you're liberal, you've got to be extreme, you got to believe that boys are girls and girls are boys, and that anybody can be what they want to be, a cat, dog, a giraffe, whatever it is, and you have to hold this ideology Also, if you wear your cross on campus, this actually, somebody told me this, that could be seemed as offensive. You know, I was on TV and as a reporter, and somebody, you know, had pointed out my cross, and they were like, "Hey, you know, being on TV, you should probably take the cross off because that could be seen as offensive to some people." And I mean, this was the way life was on Illinois State University's campus. And it was really hard to be a dissenter. I never was. I waited until I graduated, and then I started dissenting and going up against the grain. And Dan Bongino, you know, he's going into this. Now he has a ton of experience in the Secret Service, but does he know anything about the FBI? And when you have these people who, by all appearances, seem like very nice people, you know, they're serving their government. Maybe, you know, they've got all these credentials. They come in and they're like, "Hey, this is the briefing. Okay, this is the file that we have." And okay, whatever file Dan Bongino's looking at, I don't trust that evidence. I don't trust those institutions. Did the institution give you that file? Did you come up with that file? Surely you were just briefed. Okay. So they're going off of these briefings, I'm sure, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. But to be frank with you, I don't trust those briefings because these institutions are corrupt. We know it. That was their whole thing, these three-letter agencies. And that's why they were appointed into these roles, is to weed out the corruption here. And I think that the pressure, it's almost like peer pressure. And it's like being on a state university campus or a college campus. The pressure to be, and it's just natural, humanity just does this. The pressure to not be a kink in the hose. The pressure to not be a thorn in the side. I think that outweighs your morality a lot of the times. I know it did for me. It outweighs your ideology, or outweighs even your religion in some cases. And, you know, it takes very impressive people to dissent from the status quo. Very impressive people. And I hope that, you know, we eventually see the evidence and see the file that Dan Bongino is talking about, but most likely that evidence was gathered by pencil pushers within the FBI, corrupt people within the FBI, and they did all of the evidence finding. And if he's going off of that evidence, you know, what I would want Dan Bongino and Kash Patel to do is to create their own file, go out and investigate it separately. Now that you're in the FBI, now that you're the leaders of the FBI, it starts with you. And don't come in to this with the history or anything. Make your own, or have your own evidence and gather your own evidence, and don't just go off the words of these people who are in this institution and believe them. Because I think that's naive. Lepron. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a raises your estrogen levels. Interesting. I didn't know that. I knew it suppressed your testosterone levels. I know people who take that for prostate cancer, but also people take that kind of stuff for gender or transition therapies, things like that. That's also another part of this. Maybe they didn't want to reveal that he was on Lepron. Because this drug has really become popular amidst the gender affirming care industry, right? And if they were to come out and say, yeah, he's on Lepron, that's why he's kind of loopy, that's why he's got memory holes and his cognitive decline and memory loss. If they were to have come out and said that, then Lepron would be under attack, and they didn't want to do that because they need that drug in order to push their gender-affirming nonsense. So that could be another reason as to why they didn't come out and talk about Joe Biden's medical history or what he was on, what kind of treatment plan he was on. For today, I hear normal approved. Yes, I did talk about that earlier today, John. I might revisit it here in the show. You can always scroll back, though. I talked about Mayor Chris Coos. And I watched the entire council meeting pretty much in its entirety. I was very exhausted because I knew that it was going to just get rubber stamped through because these people have no backbone, no spine, no representative bone in their body. Okay, a lot of these were elected representatives on the council. They approved this very controversial, it's right there on Beach and Shelbourne, like you said, the Essex Housing Project. They approved that, and they gave all kinds of stupid reasons. Like Karen Smith probably had the most stupid reason, which they went off this economic development study saying that Livingston, Logan, all these surrounding counties, they're driving in to work in Bloomington, and they should try to combat that by, implementing these multifamily housing projects or approving these multifamily housing projects, which is just dumb because it attacks us as an American culture. Single family houses, driving into work, the picket fence. Like, if you want to address the housing crisis, just build single family homes that are affordable. Boom, there, figured it out for you. Welcome to the Red Kingdom. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We've got so much to get to this morning. I do want to get to all of it. I'm going to try. But, it's the show. It's there's things that pop up and news that pops up that we've got to cover, and I might not get to everything. That's okay. I've got to get to this, though. Joe Biden in 2022, he said, in 2022, that's why I and so many damn other people have cancer. So he admitted he had cancer in 2022. And I want to be clear, you can have cancer and be a terrible garbage person. And that happens to be in Joe Biden's case. Do I want him to get better? Yes, 100%. I think you're a total jackwagon if you're celebrating Joe Biden having cancer. He fell apart before our very eyes. They covered it up. The left and the media, I repeat myself, the left and the media, they're the same thing. And this announcement, this Joe Biden announcement of him having this aggressive form of prostate cancer, I really hope that prior to this announcement that he was getting the medical treatment he needed and that they weren't trying to preserve Joe or withholding him a treatment from him. I talked about Leprin, which is this drug that they use to hold back testosterone. At least on the stream, she actually said it actually raises your estrogen levels. I'm not a doctor, I don't know. But it does, the side effects here, the drug. And they use this actually for gender affirming care a lot of the time, which might be another reason why they concealed his treatment and what he was going through, because they didn't want to prove or show that Lepron has negative side effects like long-term memory loss. And even if you get off of it, it might not come back, your long-term memory loss. So we're going to get to a doctor or urologist saying, yeah, there's no way that this guy did not have cancer for years. This is an aggressive form of cancer, and he has annual checkups. Now, I do see this in veteran hospitals sometimes where they don't get treatment for 10 plus years or seek medical attention for 10 plus years. And then they get to my office, and then, yes, they do have an aggressive form of cancer. But that's because they haven't had annual checkups. We know that Joe Biden was having annual checkups, medical checkups. So we're going to get to this clip of 2022 and the doctor, but we also want to get to Bernie Sanders saying that the Democrats out loud, he admitted this, Democrats are actually a threat to democracy. There's so much I want to get to. Dan Pangino, Kash Patel saying that Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself, like actually committed suicide. I disagree. And today's show is going to break down why I disagree. Some housekeeping things that I want to get to this morning. You won't want to miss it. Running errands. We're going to be there tonight. I'm going to be there. Come say hi, 6 to 8 p.m. I'm really excited about this one. Running errands on Locust in Bloomington from 6 to 8. The first drawing is going to be at 6:30. We're drawing for 2 finalists to win a prize pack and to qualify for a spot at our grand prize giveaway that we're holding on June 26th at the Smash House Tavern in Bloomington. This is a Caribbean cruise brought to you by Expedia Cruises. You can register for that cruise, become a finalist during this cruise stops. Running errands tonight from 6 to 8, and then tomorrow morning bright and early, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'm really excited because I'm going to be at Jack's signing you up, registering you for this to qualify for this spot for this grand prize giveaway for the cruise that we're giving away. This is a luxury cruise on the Caribbean. And it's just going to be so amazing if you get this. Like, this is going to be life-changing, and you can make so many amazing memories on this cruise. We're going to be there from 9 to 11 at Jack's Cafe. I know I'm going to be getting their special 2 eggs, 2 pancakes, and a drink, $12 cash, or you can do biscuits and gravy. I'm more of a biscuits and gravy type person. I love biscuits and gravy. Nobody makes them that good. And my biscuits and gravy are so good. But Jack's, Jack's is the only one that I think is better than mine. I'm not going to lie. Biscuits and gravy with 2 eggs and a drink with a cup of coffee. I mean, you can't beat it. 9 to 11, right after the show. I'm going to be there and I'm going to be signing you up. So come on out tomorrow morning, 9 to 11. And then tonight, I'll be out running errands from 6 to 8 p.m., registering you for this cruise brought to you by Expedia Cruises. Okay, let's get into today's show. Let's get to this doctor. He's a urologist talking about how it's absolutely impossible that Joe Biden had this aggressive, like this is a new revelation. He's had this cancer for a while.
It's very unlikely that someone could get annual checkups and not notice a PSA elevation over the past, this is what I typically would see in a VA hospital where a patient hasn't had medical attention in 10 years, presents to an emergency room with bone pain, and then they find that it's metastatic prostate cancer. But in the modern age of medicine, especially the fact that he was a former president, he had intensive state-of-the-art, care where we can see prostate cancer, 10 years in the past. So this is, it's very unusual to hear that someone has prostate cancer where they're annually being followed up. And the fact that we just find it at a Gleason 9 is just pretty much unheard of in this day and age of medicine. Even in the, even in the inner city populations, we wouldn't see it. So you're saying even.
Wow. And I really hope that he was getting the treatment that he needed. Doesn't look like it, because maybe if you were to catch this early, he wouldn't have this aggressive of a type of cancer. Let's get to Joe Biden. And this is in 2022. I'm old enough to remember when he said this. Take a listen.
And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? It had to put on their windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation. And because it was
All right, there you have it. That's Joe Biden saying, I have cancer. I and so many other damn people have cancer. I mean, he said that 3 years ago. So it's very possible that he had cancer 3 years ago, I think. And I think that there needs to be hearings and committees, and people need to be drug out. I don't think Joe Biden needs to be drug out before Congress. I think that jail does. Did you provide the president with proper, did you withhold treatment? I don't know. I mean, it's an aggressive form of cancer. Was he getting the proper treatment? And the American people really should have known about this. I need Kamala Harris in front of a committee. I need Ron Klain, Jake Sullivan, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. Anybody who worked in the West Wing needs to be drug out in front of a committee, put under oath, and to answer questions. We know that he was in Delaware 3-4 days at a time, no visitor logs. And I don't know, was he hiding there so he could undergo treatment? There's a lot of suspicion here. And this is important because the American people deserve to know that when they elect somebody, they're going to be running the country. And it's becoming increasingly clear that Joe Biden wasn't running the country. And we need to know who was running the country during Joe Biden's term. All right. I want to get to Bernie Sanders, the left. They call half the country, literally Hitler, fascist, whatever it is. I mean, pick the flavor of the week, I guess. And they say, oh, you're a threat to democracy. You guys know that one. Well, they are all about projecting their insecurities onto the rest of the world. It's called psychological projection. And it's very, very common amongst the progressive politicians, including Bernie Sanders. He says, threat to democracy, MAGA Republicans, threat to democracy, right? And they call Trump literally Hitler all of the time. But take a listen to Bernie Sanders here. He was asked about the Democrats and the most undemocratic election in American history, Kamala Harris being installed, having no votes. Take a listen. Here we go. He admits it out loud with his mouth. Here we go.
The problem I think a lot of voters had is they didn't even know if it was her. We didn't even know if Biden was president. We didn't even know if these were her talking points. And we felt that over the last 4 elections, Democrats, we felt, that we didn't have a say on who could be president. We talk a lot about the Republicans being autocrats and oligarchs and taking over democracy, but from the Democrat perspective, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, I felt like the Democratic Party completely removed the democratic process from its constituents. And I think they need to have some accountability of that.
No argument here.
I
this
donated
is
for
what-
you. I mean, I wanted you to the 2016. I was like, this is going to happen. This guy's going to do it. And it felt like they stole it from me. And I'll be honest, it broke my heart when you supported him.
Look, but you have, in the world that I live in, you got a choice. And I mean, a lot of people, including my wife, agree with you. But, you're down to a choice. Is it going to be Hillary Clinton or is it going to be Donald Trump? Not a great choice.
But it ended up being him anyway. So why don't we burn it down?
Well, because it's easy to say burning it down means that children are not going to have, food to eat, that the schools will deteriorate, people will not have health care.
I got it.
And I'm an elected official. I got to represent the people.
That's fair.
And I can't turn my back on.
But then could we not also say, if ostensibly there hasn't been a fair primary for the Democrats since 2008, are they not also a threat to democracy? We
Yes.
often hear.
Fair enough. That is, yeah, I'm not going to argue with that point.
I'm not going to argue with that point. Yeah, they are a threat to democracy. Bernie Sanders just said it. Ah! The dumbest thing he probably said in that clip, by the way, Bernie Sanders. And I'm not going to, I agree with Bernie Sanders. Yeah, they are a threat to democracy. But he says, oh, kids are going to starve if Donald Trump was elected. Not only did that not happen, it's not happening now in Donald Trump's second term. Totally disingenuous lie. They've turned a blind eye, obviously, to the Biden administration, whoever the hell was running it. They turned a blind eye to grocery prices reaching all-time highs, and they couldn't be more disingenuous if they tried. The current administration has brought down grocery prices, the biggest decline we've seen in several years. He also claimed schools would deteriorate. Let's just look at the public school system, shall we? The left has controlled the public school system for decades, and they have produced worse results year after year after year after year. And his fear-mongering claims are just another way for him to project his insecurities about the policies he actually supports and has supported that have made American people worse off. He's projecting his insecurities. And the worst realization from this is that he admitted that the system is corrupt and rigged, yet he proves not to care. He doesn't care. He does not care. Fixing the corrupt system is not a concern to him. He does not want to fix it, Bernie Sanders. He's actively campaigning against the only group of people trying to end bureaucratic control. Look at DOGE, cutting bureaucratic control, cutting spending, the government bloat. Thus, it's safe to assume that he's not only part of the problem, he's a threat to democracy, Bernie Sanders, everywhere. He's a threat to democracy everywhere because he's beholden to the corrupt left more than he would ever pretend to admit. He's willing to admit he is a part of the corruption, and he's not going to admit it to these guys on this podcast. I don't know what podcast this is. It might be like Pod Save America, some leftist podcast. But he is all about the corruption because he benefits from it. So you can pretend all you want that, oh yeah, I want to take down the corrupt system. You're actively campaigning against the only guys who are trying to break up the bureaucratic control. That being said, the left is a threat to democracy, and that's an understatement. Sanders, they work to undermine the will of the people all of the time, and he's another progressive tyrant. Bernie Sanders is just like them. If you're not against corruption, and if you're not working towards ending the corruption and the bureaucratic control like Donald Trump is doing, like DOGE is doing, and in fact, he's actively campaigning against it, you're benefiting from corruption if you're not working against it. All right, that brings me actually to Patel and Dan Bongino. This is going to be spicy. They did an interview. They said that Epstein did kill himself. Today's show is going to break down why I disagree. Love Dan Bongino, was on the show, or was on the program, City's 92.9 schedule for years. But I disagree. And he's trained me, Dan Bongino himself has trained me and you to not believe the government when they say, trust us. and then they don't provide you any evidence to suggest that you should trust them. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, smash that like button. Dems are bringing this to deflect from Trump's accomplishment. The Dems are bringing this to deflect from Trump's accomplishments. I'm assuming the Dan Bongino Cash Patel thing. Not sure what you're talking about. Remember when they had, bringing this out, would it be Joe Biden and the prostate cancer? Yeah, at this point, it's pretty much a moot point. He already served in the presidency. I really do think that there needs to be a committee and people need to answer as to what they lied to the American people about. Was he receiving proper treatment? Did people withhold proper treatment from the president? In order to kind of preserve him, because undergoing treatment can be stressful. Undergoing treatment can, especially Lupron or Lepron, whatever they do to treat prostate cancer, that can cause cognitive decline and memory loss. Were they giving him the Lepron when he was supposed to have it? Were they withholding it from him if he, say, had a big meeting coming up or a big speech coming up? I don't know, because that's in our interest as the American people. We need to make sure that our president, with his annual checkups, with his doctors, that he's being taken care of. And we need to ensure that we know who's running the presidency at all times, because we elect that guy. He's the leader of the free world, and we deserve answers on that. But yeah, I think that you're definitely right that this is a complete smoke show, light show, whatever you want to call it, to distract us from Trump's accomplishments. You're exactly right. The $1 trillion deals, the lowering of prices, grocery prices, I just talked about that. We've seen lower grocery prices. They're lowering, and we haven't seen this in several years. So I do think that the Joe Biden thing is kind of a distraction. The timing of this all is a distraction, and to get people talking about the Democrat Party, and to not talk about the Trump accomplishments, which is the Arab deals, the Qatar deals that he bought, or he had them buy several Boeing planes, and they'd like to get hung up on this plane that was gifted. I don't know if he actually accepted the gift, Donald Trump and the Trump administration, from, I think it was Qatar. It was a plane. The Qatari prime minister talked about this, where they were going to give a plane to him. But that's after, of course, Donald Trump sold them tons of Boeing planes, and we benefited from that, and we made a ton of money off of that. We're talking trillions of dollars that we've made as a government. And as a result, if we pass this One Big Beautiful Bill Act, we're going to see no taxes on tips. We're going to see no taxes on overtime. We're going to see child tax increase, tax credit increase by $500 or something to $2,500. We're going to see tax cuts like we've never seen before. In 2017, Donald Trump had an income tax break, and now they're trying to permanently install this income tax break. So I would love to see the complete elimination of income taxes. And I think that's Donald Trump's goal by the end of 2028. I think that he's that ambitious, and he's going to try to do away with income taxes for good. Hence the tariffs. It used to be in this country before, like 1930, 1940s, and then it started to slowly progress to this, where we get our revenue from. So I've just said this multiple times. Now it's like 99% to 1% where the revenue is generated by the taxpayer and not by tariffs. Back before, I'd say, Herbert Hoover, it was, and Herbert Hoover, he tried to do the tariff thing and he really screwed the pooch. But it used to be 70-30, where 70% of the revenue was relied upon the taxpayer, and then 30% was relied upon tariffs. So Donald Trump is really trying to change things up here, where we're going to ease the burden off of the taxpayer, and we're going to hold our adversaries, or our traditional adversaries, accountable. And I think that he's actually doing the Christian thing, where we are working with, maybe not befriending, but we are working with these Middle Eastern countries. We're lifting the sanctions off of Syria. This is a huge deal, and nobody's ever done it before. This is peace in the Middle East. This is earth-shattering stuff, and nobody wants to talk about it. and the mainstream media would much rather talk about old news, which is that Joe Biden was ill. Like, we already all knew this, and you've become so irrelevant. You don't get to be relevant all of a sudden, or try to force relevancy on the American people by now reporting what you should have reported 5 years ago, that Joe Biden was unwell. I feel sorry for Joe. Forgets his crimes. Yeah. Well, that Robert Turr audio I played earlier was a little bit scraggly or scratchy, but he admits there, he says that he says in 2017, 2018 is when Bo died. That's not, or he was deployed. He was getting his dates all confused. Very clear that he was having memory problems, and Robert Turr had said that he's an elderly man with poor memory. And you remember the media jumping on Robert Turr for saying that kind of stuff. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We are going to get to hopefully Dillian Vancil at 7:30 here, so we'll be right back. Smash that like button. Whoa. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9 The News and Talk of Bloomington Normal. You guys can always head on over to cities99.com. Check out our cruise stops. You won't want to miss it tonight. I'll be out at running errands from 6 to 8. You guys can see me. I'll sign you up. To become a finalist. You win a prize pack and you qualify for a spot if you're one of our finalists that we draw at running errands tonight for our grand prize giveaway on June 26th to win this cruise. It's the Smash House Tavern. You can check it out, cities929.com, where you also got another one Wednesday morning, 9 to 11 a.m. There's a special going on at Jack's. 2 eggs, 2 biscuits, a drink, $12. That's it. So you definitely want to come on out 9 to 11 tomorrow at Jack's Cafe. Tonight, running errands, 6 to 8. These are your chances to become a finalist for a grand prize giveaway on June 26th to win that cruise from Expedia Cruises. Don't miss it. All right. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Kash Patel, Dan Bongino. They did an interview about Jeffrey Epstein killing himself, and today's show is breaking down why I disagree. According to the Daily Beast, 2 of President Donald Trump's appointees to lead the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, firmly stated that Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide, causing an uproar, obviously, of MAGA supporters on social media. People don't agree, or people are still skeptical. FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino said, in no uncertain terms on Fox News Sunday Morning Futures, this is a show, that the convicted pedophile took his own life and he was awaiting trial, as he was awaiting trial in 2019. Intellectual honesty is so important. In order for people to change their minds, you have to present them evidence. You can't get pissed off because people don't change their minds on their position when you don't offer any kind of evidence or new information. You shouldn't just go and expect people to change their position if there's no new information presented to them. So Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, they say, yep. Kash Patel says this, quote, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who worked as a public defender, a prosecutor, somebody who's been in the prison system, has been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what this is. And Dan Bongino said he killed himself, backing Patel up, and he says, I saw the whole file, he killed himself. Okay. Well, Dan trained me, Dan Bongino, he was on City's 92.9 program schedule. I love Dan Bongino, and this is in no way a sly to Dan or Kash Patel. I met Kash Patel in person, met Dan in person. They're great people. However, you have to understand that you trained your audience up, Dan. that the people in this audience, you, conservative cat audience, you know not to trust government when they say trust us. Trust us. Presents no evidence to suggest that we should trust them. Trust us. Well, past statements prove that Dan was at least skeptical about the claims. He never officially said Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. I think that the evidence is overwhelming. You look at the autopsy. I think the force in which he was hung, I think that had to have been done by a person. But I don't know. I haven't seen the file. Dan Bongino has the file. Why don't we have the file? He says, trust us. I'm sorry, but I don't trust these institutions. That's the whole reason why you're there. I don't trust these institutions. You need to do your own evidence finding and not just take what the pencil pushers and the corrupt people within the FBI give you and read through that file and say, yep, that looks right. If you've seen the entire file, Dan, release it. What's the point of holding it back now? Really, what's the point? Let us understand what you have seen so that the conspiracy theories can go away completely if it's true that he did in fact kill himself. People don't trust their institutions, and when you just say, trust me because I have all of these credentials, which is what we've been so critical of in the past. Patel, he does this appeal to authority thing. He says, oh, I've got all this vast experience as a public defender and as a prosecutor. Just trust me. Show me the evidence. All right, I've got to switch gears here. We are going to get to Dan Vancil. I got to take a quick break, but we're going to be right back. We're going to bring Dillian Vancil, 17th Congressional District. He's running against Eric Sorensen. He's the Democrat incumbent. We're going to bring him on after the break here. We're the radio friends, but we're going to bring him on into the stream. Catch us there.
Good morning.
Good morning, folks. If you're watching right now on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, we definitely need you to subscribe. You get the notification and you stay up to date on all things the news, and you also hear from candidates who are running in your district. Dylan, welcome to the program. How you doing?
Good. How are you this morning?
Good. Well, I just wanted to bring you on and inform our listeners that you are running in the 17th Congressional District. So we're going to come back for our radio friends, but right now I wanted to start out with a fun little question.
Yeah.
So Illinois, what is the number one thing you're obviously campaigning? What is the number one thing that you're hearing going door to door, talking with constituents?
The people of 17th don't feel like they're being represented appropriately. We've got Eric Sorensen out there focusing on social issues and not what actually affects our families in the 17th and their pocketbooks. So, we're gonna change that. We're putting all the miles in. We're meeting everybody throughout the district. I've put on over 10,000 miles so far campaigning already, and we've got months to go. So we're getting our name out there.
So give me a view of your district. Can you explain the boundaries here?
I've got this right next to me.
You can show it
because it is a mess, and we know exactly why it's a mess. Here's the 17th Congressional District. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's been redrawn in 2020. It goes from Bloomington, Peoria, all the way up, zigzags around up to Rockford. We know exactly why the maps are drawn the way they are, but this next couple cycles, we're going to get out of the super minority, and we're gonna make some changes on these maps. I hope.
Mm-hmm.
Get them back to where they should be.
It's a huge district, and the Illinois 17th. Would you say primarily farmland, or is there what major cities are in there in the district?
Major cities, you've got Rockford, Rock Island, Peoria, and Bloomington. I would say the 17th is extremely diverse. It has some manufacturing, a lot of farm ground. Farming is predominant in the 17th, and it's just such a wide variety of different areas in the 17th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am excited to see what you do with the 17th congressional district once you're elected. But we are going to come back for our radio friends. I'm going to take a quick break, folks, but you're going to want to come on back because we're going to get to who Dillian is as a person, why he entered the race, and, where his stances are on policy. We're going to be right back with that. Just hang out a second. Woo! Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. What the hell? What was that hell all about? Just a couple of weeks ago. Not even a couple of weeks ago. I think it was last week. I bet your roof kind of looks like Swiss cheese at this point. Call the folks at Couples Construction, New York Public Adjusting. They're great. They're my good friends, good buddies, and they come in and they are fast, they are reliable, and they will get your roof looking great. So yeah, I bet your roof looks a little bit like Swiss cheese after that hail storm. And then we had a dust storm, like hail, dust, whatever happened to just the normal, like windy weather with the trees falling. Like I didn't know where that came from, the hail and the dust. So we're going to get to a few things this morning, a couple of housekeeping things. We are doing a cruise stop tonight, 6 to 8. I'll be there running errands on Locust from 6 to 8. We're going to draw 2 finalists to win a prize pack and to qualify for a spot at our grand prize giveaway on June 26th. This is the cruise we're giving away. It's a deluxe Caribbean cruise from Expedia Cruises. You won't want to miss running errands tonight from 6 to 8. Jax and Leroy, right off I-74. We're going to be there from 9 to 11 a.m. They've got breakfast specials, 2 eggs, 2 biscuits, and gravy, and a drink for $12. That you can't get that anywhere. You really can't. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Dillian Vancil. He joins me on the program live. You guys can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Dillian, he's running in the Illinois 17th congressional district against Eric Sorensen, the incumbent of that district. He was telling me a little bit about the district. It's a huge district. It includes Rockford, I think Peoria too. Am I right, Dillian?
Yep, bits and pieces of Peoria. Yep.
So I'm going to bring you on. Tell me, give me a pitch of who Dillian is. Why enter politics? Why do that? I don't know what what possesses a person to go into politics, especially in Illinois. But
Especially being a Republican in Illinois, I think a little crazy, but we've got to have some of that. I'm a business owner. I started Dame Fine Coffee here almost 5 years ago, and it is a little play on words. Dame stands for myself, Dylan, my wife, Alyssa, and then my two boys, Mason and Easton. A lot of people, 9 out of 10 say damn fine coffee, and it is damn fine, but it's a little play on family words. Family name.
I've been. It's a terrific place, and you've got quite a few locations, don't you?
We do. We have 6 locations. 3 of them are within the 17th district. We have a couple over in Iowa as well, and then Stronghurst, Illinois. So, and along with that, we've been extremely blessed and fortunate with our business and what it's become. Along with that, we just finished up our franchise paperwork. I have economic developers calling, every other week at this point, wanting us to bring Dame Fine Coffee to their town. Unfortunately, there's just not enough of me to go around, as much as I'd love to continue to grow that, myself. But, we can supply the support staff to help somebody else be successful with their own Dame Fine Coffee. So we're looking forward to that option of expansion as well. And along with that, we have a distribution company, and we help supply over 40 other coffee shops on a weekly basis. So it's just a natural fit for us to continue to expand. And that all stemmed from, I don't know how I got so lucky to start a business and be elected on the school board in 2021. But here we are. It's taught me a lot. We had to deal with maybe more than we should have getting off the gate, but I'm extremely fortunate. Like I said, Dame has been wonderful. Before that, I was an engineer for the railroad for 10 years. Did that. Well, I actually lived out in South Dakota for 5 years. For my first year was out in Montana, so that was quite the experience. Then we moved over to Aberdeen, South Dakota, where I spent 5 years there. While I was in South Dakota, this is my first taste of politics. I was the legislative director for the what was then the UTU, the United Transportation Union. It's now SMART. But that was kind of my first dip my toes into politics. My wife and I started, having kiddos, so we came back home to be close to family. Did the railroad for Canadian Pacific out of the Quad Cities for a little while, and then started Dame Fine Coffee. So along with that, that allowed me the time. I jumped on my local school board back in 2021 and fought the COVID pandemic. We went maskless, luckily, at my school for a little bit, but unfortunately not for long. I ended up, while I was actually a sitting school board vice president, I actually pulled my kids out of my local public school and took them across the river to Notre Dame because they were, it was their first years of school, and I wasn't going to have them go to school and be muzzled on their first years of that. So that's the route we took. I serve on the Eagleview Community Health Board, been trying to help with what is a mess of healthcare and how we can change it in our rural areas and allow for more access. Along with, been on the Monmouth Chamber Board for the last 4 years. I did recently just step down from that position because I'm so busy with everything else. But we're looking to maybe jump in and help on the development side with the MCAP. So
the school in which are you a current school board member?
Correct. I was just signed up for another 4 years there.
What school is that?
So that'd be West Central. It's right in the Henderson County, Warren County area.
Okay. Now, being a small business, or small, I mean, you're getting right out of that small business, your franchise, get all these locations. So this thing is really taking off. This is an interesting perspective because you have locations in Iowa. So how do your locations, just being a business owner, how do your locations kind of differ in Iowa and in Illinois? Do you find it harder to run a business in Illinois? Or run locations in Illinois? And did that play a role in entering the Illinois 17th congressional race? We're talking with Dillian Vancil, Cities 92.9.
Yeah, and before I just jump into throwing Illinois under the bus, I'll give you some examples. So just this year alone, and it was last year as well, the wonderful state of Illinois passed on a paid leave for all employees. Now, I don't fully disagree with it. I do think that my full-time staff should be compensated with some paid time off. Now, with that, it cost my company over $25,000 right off the top to provide paid leave for all of my staff, whether they work 2 hours a week or they work 40 hours a week. It does not matter. I have to pay out paid leave for every single hour worked. On the Iowa side, I don't have to do that. So that's just one stipulation on what Illinois has done to kind of hurt our small businesses here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how the single, mom and pop shop can afford all these regulations and rules Illinois, keeps pushing on us. I don't know how they can manage it. We're fortunate enough. We have some extra, we have 6 locations where we can kind of spread it out a little bit. But it's tough. And on the franchise end of things, we're wrapped up in Iowa. We can sell a franchise tomorrow. Illinois, we have to go through an audit process, which takes 90 to 120 days. Go figure. So we're on hold for that for a little bit. But just Illinois does not make it easy for small businesses to get up and get going. And I hate to say it, and not only because the timeline we have to deal with the audit, it's just so much easier to do business in Iowa. How do we get that over here to the Illinois side?
Yeah, and did that contribute to your entering of politics in any kind of way?
Absolutely. I mean, you can only get fired up for so long before you want to do something about it. And I'm not one of those guys that can take a back seat and just continue to complain about things without doing something about it. When I started, Dame, milk was 99 cents a gallon. Now we're pushing $4. Thank God Trump won in November. I don't know where my businesses would have been 4 years under Kamala. Probably wouldn't be existent.
Exactly. Well, and I want to ask you, we're talking with Dillian Vancil, candidate in the Illinois 17th. What can you do at a federal level? A lot of what you talked about, yes, state policy, and it varies state to state. What do you think you can do at a federal level as a congressman to help businesses take off in the 17th congressional district?
Well, I mean, look at what's going on now, what's on the mainstream media with the big, beautiful bill. Now, I think it's headed in the right direction. I will say there needs to be some fine tuning there, but it's headed in the right direction. We need tax cuts and we need relief for the American people. We need, no tax on overtime. We need no tax on tips. And my biggest thing, what I'd like to see them add to that is no tax on call. All of our firefighters, EMTs, nurses, doctors, those guys are on call. Let's cut them a break and get rid of the tax on call.
Yeah, and I think that this is an interesting concept, and this is probably the primarily the difference between a Republican and Democrat. You're all about keeping the money in the people's pocket, not forcing business owners like yourself to, do this paid leave, $25,000, you said, in paid leave, just do that in Illinois for your employees. Now, let's imagine this for a quick second. No taxes on tips. You got all the money in your pocket, right? Now you won't have to provide paid leave for your employees, and that's not going to a cost that you incur as a business owner. And everybody's happy because they have their money in their pocket, and if they want to take some time off, they can request in, and they don't have to be paid by you because they've got their own money. And how exciting is that as an employee? Hey, I'm making tons of money. I've stowed this away for this little vacation I'm taking. I'm not relying on my employer to pay me to take time off. I've saved and I'm taking my family on a vacation because I earned it. I mean, it's just satisfying in general. And I think it just works so much better because you're not relying on your business owner and you're not putting that burden on the business owner, and it's really equality. Because it's not fair to your family that you've got to, and not that you don't love your employees. I'm sure you do. I mean, they're always very smiley when I go through the drive-thru and they're happy to be working there, and they're great employees, and I'm sure you love them. But I mean, why should your kids' mouths not be fed or have, what they want with that $25,000? And everybody's
No, I
money.
agree. Yeah, and all it does is it just stops growth. That's less money we can continue to grow. We employ almost 60 people now. I would love to continue to grow. Mine is more of a time constraint, but the state of Illinois and our current tax situation federally doesn't necessarily help that.
Mhm.
So I appreciate all of my staff tremendously. I don't know how I got so lucky. I'm fortunate. We have a COO in place now that's taken over the daily operations. We have managers at all of our locations that are phenomenal, and along with our just entry level staff. You hear of, other businesses can't find people to work. I have been extremely fortunate, and not to, pat myself on the back, but I'd like to say it's the way we do things at Dame Fine Coffee. We don't lose people just because. We lose them because maybe they're moving on to the next phase of their life with college or just moving out of the area. I have a lot of the same staff that we started with. That's because we treat them like human beings, and that was one thing working for the railroad, and it's chaos in itself. I wanted to create a workplace where people could enjoy to go to work and actually come to work. I don't have to worry about them showing up or not. They love what they do. They make good money at what they do. I would say we pay well over the industry standard, and we will continue to do that. But it does get difficult with the shape of Illinois and with what they keep doing to our small businesses.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're coming up on our time break, so our break. So June 6th, where are you going to be? And
So June 6th, I've got a meet and greet fundraiser. That'll be at the VFW at 1006 East Lincoln Street there in Bloomington. It'll be at the VFW. Like I said, June 6th. It is the anniversary of D-Day. So we're going to celebrate and honor the people that have served, along with get a chance to chit chat with me. And I'd love to meet you. That is my main focus at this moment, is trying to get all throughout the district, meeting as many people as I can. We have to flip Illinois 17. We have to. We don't have a choice. And that, at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's not about you even. You and I are younger, but still it's about our kids coming up. It's about the next generation. I've got 6 and 8-year-old boys that I would love to have a business to hand down to them. I feel like that has been threatened over the last 4 years. So we're going to do something about it. I'm excited for the opportunity. We've built tremendous momentum already, and we're going to keep that going in November of next year.
Wonderful. Dylan, thank you so much for joining the program.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, we're going to come right back, and I've got more news ahead. I do want to get to this story about this fella. He had to hold down a coyote, strangle a coyote to save his life for 10 minutes. I'll be right back with that story next. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, folks. I so do appreciate you being here. Subscribe to the channel. Why do people vote for Democrats? Because they think that they don't deserve any better. I think it's an abusive relationship, quite literally. It's kind of like the girl that keeps going back to the guy that beats the hell out of her. That's what it is. It's an abusive relationship. And, for example, that paid family leave or paid leave thing. So $25,000, right off the top, to provide that to his employees as a business owner and as a major business owner and employing lots of people, he has to provide that via mandate by the Illinois state government. And that's $25,000 out of his pocket. But guess what? It's so much more than that. And the Democrat Party is very smart, and they're cunning people. They say, hey, we're gonna secure paid leave for you because we are the good guys. But guess what? That's not giving you autonomy over your own life. That's not giving you the independence of your own life and creating something and doing it yourself, making the money, stowing it away, taking a vacation to where you can take off work and have money, and your employer doesn't have to cover your paid time off, okay, or your time off. Is that you are in charge of your own life. And the Democrats, they're really great at this, where they've made themselves your source. So your source for money, your source for protection. They've made themselves the people you look to, and you don't look from within and say, hey, what can I do to make my life better? You have to look constantly to them. What can they do to make my life better? It's quite literally just lords and ladies presiding over peasants. I mean, this is where we're at with the Democrat Party. And they would much rather you be the peasant seeking the pennies. I mean, paid leave. Could you imagine no taxes on tips? Could you imagine no tax on overtime? You have that money to do with whatever the hell you want to do with it, right? Democrats say, well, we don't want you to go to work, and we want to incur this cost on the business owners, the $25,000 to provide paid leave to people. And we are the arbiters of really the resources. And that's what Democrats are all about, that they want to be the ones in control of it all. And Republicans, fundamentally, they just say, no, we want people to have money in their pockets to do with what they want to do with it, whether that's childcare, or paid time off, or to take time off. We want money in their pockets to do whatever the heck they want to do with it, because guess what? That's freedom. That's freedom. These programs that they create that they say you need, that you don't really need. So I don't need, childcare. I don't need paid time off. So I'm getting taxed for these services that I don't necessarily need or want. Okay, but they say that you need this. They say that you want this, and they're forcing themselves down your throat, and it's an abusive relationship. Because they keep taxing you into oblivion, keeping you in this state of needing them for all these programs. Whereas if they could just keep the money, if you could just keep the money in your pocket, you could do with whatever you want with that money. So yeah, to answer long answer to your question. But the short answer is people keep voting for Democrats because they're in an abusive relationship with their government. It's similar to that of the girl that keeps going back to the guy that beats the hell out of her. It's an abusive relationship because she thinks that she doesn't deserve any better. And that's quite sad. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, and we didn't get to a whole lot that I wanted to get to this morning, but we'll get to it all tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. It is a daily show. Real quick, I did want to tell you that the Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson, he is facing DOJ. The DOJ is coming after him, and they've launched like a suit almost against him because he is discriminating against people, saying that he only wants to hire Black people. So the woke mayor says he only hires Blacks. Now the Trump DOJ is taking him to court for discrimination. So that's one headline. I do have to go, but real quick, another housekeeping note. Caribbean Cruise, we're giving them away. Okay, we're giving them away. Deluxe Caribbean Cruise. You could become a finalist. So we're drawing 2 finalists tonight at Running Errands from 6 to 8. The first drawing is going to be at 6:30. You're going to win a prize pack. Then you're going to qualify for a spot at our grand prize giveaway, where we actually give away the cruise itself at the Smash House Tavern on Prospect Road, Bloomington. You got to be 21 years of age to enter. I'll be there from 6 to 8 at Running Errands. And then tomorrow morning, right after the show, make sure you pull on off and to Jack's Cafe right off I-74 in Leroy from 9 to 11. They've got 2 biscuits, 2 eggs, and a drink for $12. And you won't want to miss it. First drawing is at 9:30 a.m. I'll see you there. Bye-bye. Love you so much. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning.